Awesome. Luann is actually going to start us off today, but then I will take over shortly after.
Unmute. Hello, everybody. We're so excited that you are with us. You are in a session of how does this really work? We're going to guide you through the major elements of online instruction with the tools that we've been using. We're going to first frame what type of instruction is occurring for students. We're going to define synchronous and asynchronous. So what you're experiencing right now is synchronous instruction. It's the kind of learning experience that happens in real live time with the learning facilitator. The purpose of this is to give students, the learner, a chance to actually engage in multiple ways, whether it's with camera on and facial expressions. So when you guys smile at us, that gives us feedback, and we love that, by the way. So there's an exchange through facial expressions, voice, the chat box, different reaction buttons that can be utilized within this format of Zoom. So with synchronous instruction, teachers are available through a device in some type of a visual exchange, and right now we use Zoom or Google Meets. Everyone needs a device in order to engage in this way. Asynchronous time is a time when students could be using a device and utilizing materials that teachers have provided through Google Classroom that they can access in their own time and place, and they can do it multiple times. That's the benefit of asynchronous. We recognize that during this time that many of our students have environmental challenges because they're at home, or they may be in alternate physical settings that are away from the school. And this type of opportunity gives students the chance to revisit, process in a time that makes sense for them. And a device could be needed, especially if they're utilizing Google Classroom to get materials, but that's not always the case. But that could be the case as well. So synchronous time is happening for all of our students for sure in the morning. Our K-3 students are also using devices in the afternoon because their synchronous time might be with their teachers in the afternoon. All of our secondary students, they have their synchronous in the morning, and that occurs periods 1 through 3 are Mondays and Thursdays, and periods 4 through 5 are Tuesdays and Fridays. And then the afternoon is their asynchronous time. And so they could be accessing assignments and tasks, even assessments in their Google Classrooms in the afternoon independently using a device. Caitlin's going to help us know those features of Google Classroom and access points.
We're actually going to start with talking about Clever, and then we're going to be talking about Google Classroom. And at that point, I will take you to my screen and log in a test student so that you can see exactly what it looks like on a student account and understand the different features of a student account. But right now, I just want to briefly discuss Clever. If you have a middle school student, they may be accessing Clever to get to curriculum or to iReady. For our high school students, I don't think, as far as we're understanding, they utilize Clever. At that age, we're assuming that they can navigate to websites independently of a portal. But just so you know, this is used definitely in elementary and in middle school. But Clever, in essence, is a portal that takes you elsewhere. So there's no work that's to be done inside of Clever. It's just essentially logging on once using our students.silcom.k12.wa.us account that is given to each of our students. And then they will have access to their portal for the entire year. The resources that are within the portal are curated by both their teachers and the district. So they can access that if they need something specific, like, for example, can you please log on to the Amplify curriculum? So Clever is really neat because it has a single sign-on feature, and this is essentially you sign in once and you're signed in for the rest of the year no matter what. So you can close the tab, you can close your browser, you can close your computer, and anytime you open your device and access Clever, you're still going to be signed in using that Silcom username and password. And then accessing Clever in general just streamlines student navigation to resources and websites that we are frequently asking kids to be using. So examples of those are Google Classroom, iReady, and online curriculum. Accessing Google Classroom you do not have to go through Clever. It's not the only way. It's just, again, for our younger kids, maybe the easiest way. But Google Classroom in general is just a system for educators that helps students access efficiently learning tools and opportunities to show what they've learned. And it also provides opportunities for connections and collaboration between teachers and their students, as well as students and students. So within Google Classroom, teachers have the ability to create assignments, post announcements, share materials. They can access turned in work. They can grade and monitor assessments and assignments as they are posted. It's just a really, really beneficial tool for us in order to disseminate information to our kids in whatever form it comes in. We access Google Classroom by logging on using that same @students.steilacoom.k12.wa.us username and password. Your students, if they're in high school or middle school and have been in the district with us for a long time, should definitely have this memorized. They've used the same account each year, but in case you have never seen it before, it's typically the first letter of your student's first name followed by their last name. So if it was mine, my name is Caitlin Griffin, it would be K Griffin @students.steilacoom.k12.wa.us. That is so long, that's why I said it so fast. But if your child or your learner has a common name, it may be a little bit different. There may be a number attached to it, just to make sure that all accounts are different. If you're unfamiliar with the login information, it's definitely something that you could just ask your learner and they should be able to provide it to you very quickly. Once we're inside of Google Classroom, navigating through two important pages called the Stream and Classwork is going to allow you, as well as your student, to see assignments and materials and announcements that have been posted by their teacher. And in this space is where students are going to gain access to the items that their teacher is asking them to complete, and they are going to, by working in this space, going to be able to accomplish the goals that they have set together. So I just shared with you a lot of information. I want to give you some time to process that really quickly while I get set up to show you a demonstration. At this point, if you're interested in following along with me using your student's username and password, and maybe this is the first time you've been into Google Classroom and you want to follow along click by click with me, you could access that username and password from your learner. Or if you choose to just watch, that's totally fine too. I'm going to let you process, and I myself am going to get set up.
So while Caitlin is doing that, if you're not accessing or opening up another device and you plan to just follow along, I want to make sure that as she is demonstrating, should you have a question or something come to mind, that you be able to utilize the chat box. So we're going to do a little practice with the chat box. Would you please go to the chat box icon in the bottom of your screen, and would you just enter what school your student that you're representing right now is attending? And if everybody does that, I'll know that, yay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, awesome. We got double duty. Middle school and high school going on. This is one of those elements of synchronous. This is where the facilitator or the teacher might be able to engage with a student and to find out if they can actually, if they're accessing the learning and understanding. So thank you, everybody. That reassures us that you'll be able to ask questions if you have them. Thank you.
So just to get started, I have navigated us to a Google tab, a new Google tab. You may notice some differences between, can you see my screen? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. I saw some looks on people's faces that alerted me that, hey, maybe this is not working.
Nope.
Let me try this again.
There we go.
Okay, awesome. Great, thank you. So I've just navigated us to a new Google window. You may notice up at the top, my screen is black and yours may be white. That's because I'm in what's called an incognito window, and this is just an opportunity for me to sign in as someone other than myself, so I don't have to log myself out of all of my other Google windows. So if you're maybe have a personal account of your own and your child is borrowing your device and you want them to log in a window, an incognito window is a good option for you. But from here, we're going to just kind of start to talk about how we would get to Google Classroom, and then we will look at what it looks like inside of a student's Google Classroom. So the first thing that we're going to do is press the blue sign-in button in the top right-hand corner. Oops. When you press this button, we're taken to a new screen where we're going to enter that students.steilacoom.k12.wa.us account. So for the purposes of this training, I'm going to sign in as a test student in an account that's for Chloe Clark. So if you're following along with me, you may be entering in your learner's username here, something similar to K Griffin or whatever it might be. And once you've typed that in, we're going to press next, which is where you will enter a password. For the most part, our students' passwords are the first letter of their first name followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have kids in an upper grade, I believe they have the option to change their password should it be necessary. So it might be something different. Again, if you're trying to log in as your own learner, it's just a good idea to just check in with them and see and get that information from them. Oh no, I can't type. There we go. So we're now directed back to the Google homepage, and we know we've signed in correctly and we're on the correct account by looking up in this top right-hand corner. Instead of seeing that sign in, now we see a circle. And if we click on that, it should say whose ever account you signed into. So I've signed into this test student at Chloe Clark. If you have multiple kids who are sharing a device or accessing information on, one device throughout the day, and you want to make sure that they're on their account and not their brother's or sister's account, this is a good way to check really quickly. Just go to a new Google tab and you can see whose account you're on. From here, we want to access Google Classroom. There's 4 ways that you can get there. I'm going to tell you all 4, and you can pick your own adventure, if you will. You can choose which way you want to get there. If you're on a Chromebook, down in the bottom, in like the start bar, if you will, there's typically a Google Classroom icon, and you can click on that. You also can type in Google Classroom into this search bar here. You can go up to the top in this Omnibox, it's called an Omnibox, and you can type in Google Classroom. Or if you're an old 5th grade teacher like me, you tell your kids, click on the waffle, and you get there. So this is the 9-square grid that for elementary kids we reference as the waffle. If you open that, you'll see all sorts of different options. This provides you with a menu of all Google applications. And so right off the bat, you should see Classroom. If you don't see Classroom right away, you can drag and drop these to bring it more towards the top, just in case it's down near the bottom. But when you click on that, you'll automatically be redirected to that Classroom homepage of whose ever account you're signed into. So again, I have this test student's account, and we see a Family Academy classroom, and this test student is also enrolled in 2 other classes. So if you are looking at a middle schooler's account or a high schooler's account, you may see 6 or more classes, depending on if their previous teachers collapsed their classes or not. You'll just want to make sure you're paying attention to the 6 that they're enrolled in this year. And so hopefully those are all first 6. That would be the easiest, right? So just make sure that you know your learner schedule and are clicking on the correct class. You'll have to check in with each of them, which is another challenge as a parent or a family member checking in with students learning. But if you're following along with me, just go ahead and click on one of them, and I will click on the demo and we'll get started. So we're immediately taken to the homepage of Google Classroom, which is called the Stream. Google Classroom has 3 places that you can go, and they're up at the top. So we're on the Stream. You'll notice there's a black line underneath Stream, and that's how we know where we are. There's also a classwork page and a people page. So today we're going to be talking about those pages. For right now, I'm just going to orient us to the Stream and kind of tell you 3 main features on the Stream, and then we'll go from there. First thing is looking in this middle section here where a teacher could post announcements or updates for their learners, as well as potentially for parents too. So this is a great space to look at to see any communication that the teacher has with the class in general. So you'll see here, welcome to the Stream, and a quick little blurb about what the Stream is. These will stack similar to Facebook if you're familiar with Facebook, so they'll just go one on top of the other as new posts are put up. So you may need to scroll a little bit as time goes on to find information. On this left-hand side, you'll see a box that says upcoming, and this is a quick place to look where to see what's coming up in the future. Google does about 5 to 7 days. It's like shipping, 5 to 7 business days, but 5 to 7 days of upcoming assignments or activities that are due should your teacher put due dates on their assignments, which hopefully they're doing. So really quickly, if you don't go any deeper than this on Google Classroom, you can look on this page right here and just see what's coming up and have a quick check-in with your student. If you're somebody with lower level kids, this may pertain to you. If you're somebody with just middle school and high school kids, it may not. Up in the top, there is the option to have a Google Meet link. Our younger grades are using Google Meet just because it's a lot easier for our littles to access. Our upper grades are typically using Zoom. Both are accepted platforms for our district. It just really depends on the teacher and what they want to use and how they want to use this information delivery program. So if you have a younger student as well, they may just be able to click on this link if it's provided by the teacher and access their synchronous sessions through here. For those of us who are using Zoom, you most likely will find the Meet or the Zoom link somewhere in the classroom and maybe in the Stream, or they've communicated the link in some other way. Other than that though, the Stream is pretty much just a place to look for updates of information. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to classwork if no one has any questions on the Stream. We good? Okay, so the next button we're going to press, again up at the top, there's the 3 options we have within Google Classroom, and we're going to press classwork. And we will be taken to a new page that's much more complex and has much more information on it. So I just want to do a couple of little orienting describers, and then we'll go into an actual assignment and talk about what it looks like as an assignment. The first thing I want to mention is this idea on this left-hand side, which is topics. So our teachers have the ability to create topics to organize information and assignments within their classroom. You can see here, this is a little bit more oriented to elementary schools with math and reading as 2 topics within one classroom. For our middle school and high schools, their math would be one classroom, their reading would be one classroom, and then within their classroom, you may see topics based on units that they're covering. So if you're in a math classroom, you may have Unit 1, and the assignments will be categorized into those. So you can see all of your topics at once by default. You can also expand a topic should you want to look at one unit or one section in particular. So if you click on one of these over here, you'll see expanded versions of just, for example, math. So it's just an organizational tool for teachers, students, and of course for our families that are trying to keep up with their students. Up at the top, we have a Google Meet link again. If a teacher chooses to use Google Meet, it's embedded into their classroom. And then we also have this really neat feature, which is Google Calendar. So every classroom has an embedded Google Calendar into it. and any classroom a student is enrolled in will populate on the same calendar. So for example, you can, oh my gosh, what's happening? You can see here that there's technology issues, which is great. Hang on, let's get there. Here we go. You can see that there's a couple different colors represented on this calendar, and then you can see assignments that are posted on some dates. So any class, like I said, that a student is enrolled in will populate on this one same calendar that's attached to their username. So I can see here that the black is attached to Family Academy. So any black dot on my calendar is something that's due for Family Academy. You can see there's a green here. If I turn on and off the screen calendar, you'll notice Labor Day goes away. So if I have any assignments in holidays, I'll see a green dot. And then, for example, this third class that I'm enrolled in is just a test class from a teacher at Chloe Clark, and we may see some blue dots as we go. Just know that this calendar is a great tool to access in place of like a planner or just in the scheduling in general, just to check in and see what's coming up for the week. You can toggle between looking at a month view. You could go to a week view and see times of things. And you could even go to a day view, which is also really nice. So it's just really great. And again, all of your learners' classes will automatically be populated into that calendar. Luann, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to add?
That was the thing. So even though each teacher might have a different classroom, all the teachers that are utilizing the Google Calendar or putting a date, if you open up just one classroom, and access the Google Classroom, all the classroom assignments are merged into one place.
Yes. So again, if you're in one classroom, you can just click right here on this Google Calendar button and just really quickly access that, which is great. Those are the main outside features of this classwork page, if you will. So we're going to go ahead and jump into an assignment and talk about some details in an assignment. So right off the bat, I just want to point out some really important features as parents to pay attention to. And these are also great. And maybe you can ask if your learner knows about them and maybe help them as well. So everything that could be posted within Google Classroom has its own icon. So an assignment has its own icon, a material has an icon, and teachers can also post questions within Google Classroom, and those will too have an icon. So we can see two examples of those icons within this Google Classroom. The first we're going to talk about is a material. So if you look right here in the city of cubes, this is a material. So this is just a Google slide that I wanted students to on it. It was simply just to look at. Teachers may post slides like this as materials. They may post syllabi as materials. They could post a variety of things that they just want students to interact with or just to look at and not interact with, and that is called a material. Materials will all have the same icon, which looks like a piece of paper, and it has a little flag on it. You'll notice that it's a little bit of a lighter gray, and we'll come back to that in just a second. The other option that you have and that you see here is what's called an assignment, and you can see what the assignment icon looks at by looking at this converting measurements activity. It's like a clipboard with some writing or maybe a to-do list on it, but this is the icon that you will always see for an assignment. You can see two of them. So there's a lighter gray assignment and there's a darker gray assignment. This is super important to pay attention to because the color matters in this case. So if the assignment is bold like this, that means it's not yet been done. It hasn't, or it could be done, but not yet turned in. And so the bold is supposed to draw your eyes to it and say, this is either new or this is incomplete. If it's dimmer, we can probably assume or deduct that it is, it's been turned in. So this is hopefully your student has fully completed it and turned it in, and it's waiting to be looked at and given feedback by a teacher and then returned to the student. If you're just scrolling through a Google Classroom, just again, glance, if you see bolded things, that is something potentially you could check in with your students on and just say, you know, why is this one still bold? You'll notice this assignment in particular was due September 15th. So if I was looking at my learners' Google Classroom, I would say, well, that's a couple days ago now. So let's take a look at this one. Potentially they just forgot to press turn in. I can't tell you how many times I had to remind students in my class, hey, can you turn that in, please? So hopefully that's just a quick fix. Or it could mean I'm stuck, I need help, I forgot about it, you know, I need some assistance further on this. And so that's a good way to draw your attention to ways in which you can support your students. If we click on one of these assignments just from this classwork page, we get a more expanded view. And again, since this was due on September 15th, you'll see that this is red, which means missing. So that can change between several different things. It could be assigned. In this top corner, it could say assigned, it could say missing, it could say completed, or it could say returned. And so there's those 4 options that will give you another visual cue of where the progress is on this assignment in particular. If you were having a student complete this, they could click on these slides right here. This is a link to what this learner in particular was supposed to be doing. So you could get access to the assignment from right here. Or we could press this view assignment button down below. That will take us to an even bigger expanded version of the assignment, which can give us even more details that might help us orient how we can help our student. So up at the top, you're going to see the title. You'll again see the due date. You can see how many points it was worth, when it was posted. You may see class comments, discussions that are happening between students and potentially teachers. And then over here is where you're going to potentially pay the most attention to. And this is where you'll see student work again. So these are links that you can press to get access to the student work and check in on their progress on the assignment. You may have some assignments in which students need to add their own creations to, like in an essay. Please, your teacher may say, please draft an essay and submit a rough draft or a final copy to this assignment. And so if we press add or create, they can add from their Google Drive. They could add a picture through a file. And then they could also add new docs, slide sheets, drawings, etc. This black button on my screen, which may be blue if you're following along in another window, it could be blue, but this is the most important one. It's like, boom, hey, turn in. So it's really important for you to know how students can turn in their work, and it's really just as simple as pressing that button and it will be sent to the teacher. Just like when you turn in a paper pencil assignment to the teacher, it's what we consider our best work. It's what we consider my final product. And so we're going to give it to the teacher, and in a paper version, once you hand over that piece of paper to the teacher, it belongs to the teacher until they give it back to you, right? And so in an online situation, it's the same as well. Once I press turn in, students lose access to the assignment. They cannot make edits or change anything after pressing turn in until the teacher returns the assignment to them on this digital platform. And it will always live right here, but they may just no longer have access to it until the teacher gives it back. This is great for helping make sure that someone doesn't turn in a test and then look up the answer and change their work, or maybe make some edits to it after they've talked to 5 different people about the assignment. It also is a downfall because there may be times when a student realizes or needs to make changes to something. And so if they need the assignment back, this will turn into what's called an unsubmit button. So they can unsubmit the assignment and gain access to it again. It's just important to know that if they unsubmit, the teacher will be made aware that they unsubmit, and it will give them the time they unsubmit and when they resubmit it. So it's not like a sneaky way at all. It's made very clear to the teacher that they at one point turned it in, unsubmitted, and resubmitted it.
I just thought of a perk. The turn-in process, no child is going to turn in something, no student is going to turn in something, and their name and the period isn't going to be attached to it automatically in this virtual session. Here, I mean, this is so great, guys. That just occurred to me that as a teacher, we're going to know exactly who the assignment belonged to and what period it was related to. So that's super great. It just occurred to me.
Makes life as a teacher much easier, I will tell you.
Well, and for students, how many times did we receive assignments that did not have a student's identifiers on it, right? And so we couldn't even begin to move forward with it. So it's never going to be an issue of I turned it in and they didn't have their name on it. So
yes, yes. And so once the teacher receives the assignment after it's been turned in, they have the opportunity to look at the assignment and give feedback or return it with a grade attached to it based on what the child earned at that point in time. And this missing will change from one of those 4 options that I mentioned before. It's either assigned, missing, submitted, or returned. Once the assignment is returned, you're able to see that right on this space here, you're able to see the grade that they received and any teacher feedback that was given. You can also see more teacher feedback if you open the assignment and they may have left comments within that particular document. So it's just important, if you're really interested in seeing, the progress your learner is making, to open the assignments after they've been returned by the teacher to see what the teacher has presented on there. Sometimes there may be nothing, but sometimes there may be, 5, 6, 7, 8 comments that provide some assistance to your learner. Last and most important thing that I want to mention on this page is this private comment box here. This is so critical for students having the autonomy to talk to their teacher independently of a parent or a guardian or whomever it might be. So during our asynchronous time, students are being asked to complete work and show what they've learned, maybe watch some videos, etc. And if they have any issues or questions about anything that they're being asked to do in Google Classroom, they can submit a private comment to their teacher, and their teacher is the only one who's going to see it, and their teacher will get an email the second the student presses send. That email will include what the student's private comment was. It will have a link to the assignment that the student is referencing, and the teacher will then be able to respond back to them. And in this section, it'll just, again, populate, the conversation will populate right here, and the teacher and the student are able to have a conversation to support each other. Then if there's still issue or your student still needs help or you're curious about what's going on, what they're talking about, your student says, my teacher said this, and then I said this, well, you could just look at this assignment and see their entire conversation and see the interactions between the teacher and your learner right in this space here. And it's going to be really, really helpful for you to know how your student has already been helped and then how to continue to support them should they need it. And again, this is just a way for your students, especially in middle school and high school ages, that fully have the ability to type millions of text messages a day. So essentially this is like texting your teacher. They're going to get that email immediately after they press send, and it's just a faster way to communicate. And students don't have to wait for you to get home to email their teacher and then wait for you to check your email to see what the response was. So it's really putting the power in the student's hand, and we just really want to encourage our students to use these private comments in order to connect with their teacher and collaborate with their teacher. So I believe at that point, that's a lot of information, and I want to make sure that you have a second to process as well as ask any questions that you might have prior to us jumping into like a 60-second tutorial of Clever. Yes, I will just really quickly take you to Clever. There are a couple different ways you can get to Clever. For the purposes of this class, I've posted it as a link within Google Classroom. Your students will be taught by their teacher in one way to get to Clever. And if you have any questions as a parent or a guardian or a family member on how to get to Clever, there's some additional how-to videos that I posted that you should have got in the asynchronous materials that were sent to you when you signed up for this class. So if you're having any questions about that, you can access those. But for right now, I'm just going to click on the Clever portal, and it'll take us to the Clever login. So I'm going to go ahead and press login with Google because remember it saves your login information. And so I logged in once before, and so it will always be saved. All I have to do is press login with Google. And once you press this, you're given access to, again, this portal, if you will. Luann said it once before in another training, and it just really stuck with me, and I love it, but it's like a refrigerator. So you go to the refrigerator and you see what your options are inside, and if you're me, you walk away thinking you have no food in your house, regardless of what's in the refrigerator. But here you can just click and choose any of these options that are presented to you. Remember that this is an elementary account, a test account. So options that you see in a middle schooler's account are going to be slightly different. You're not going to see something that teaches the kids the alphabet like ABC, yeah. You may see McGraw-Hill, you may see iReady, you'll see Classroom, you may see Amplify, and the purpose of Clever is to just streamline the sign-on process. And so if you wanted your students to go to iReady, for example, all you would have to do is click that button and it would take you there. So Clever, again, is not a place for students to go to get more work or to get additional assignments from their teachers. It's simply a portal. It takes them inside this Clever portal, they click something and they go outside of the Clever portal. So it's just buttons essentially that you press to help quickly log on to a variety of different resources. And that is Clever in a nutshell, under 60 seconds. So again, we have about 6 or 7 minutes left. If you have any last minute questions or concerns, hurrahs, hoorays, challenges, anything you would like to share with us, you can come off mute and talk to us, or you can definitely utilize the chat box like you have been and type something in there.